Nothing's bad. I don't, I'm pretty much open. I don't get embarrassed by too much. So you can say whatever I say.
I'm really excited to have you, Aaron Silverstein. Um, I should have an introduction. We played each other in the Vanderbilt. You were very complimentary of how I played, which I really appreciated. We tried to give you a run for your money. For three quarters, we were close, and then you kind of beat us. And we've been friends for a long time through bridge. And you're one of those people here. I'm going to jinx it. You're one of those people who I feel like it's going to be so easy to talk to that this is just a treat for me. I'm just like, passenger here, and we're going to let you shine.
Well, I hope you're going to be the leader here because, I don't know exactly what you want out of me, but I'm happy to answer any questions directly and fully.
Well, it's, it's funny. We've been friends. I remember like, at the Toronto NABC, the summer NABC, I think it was in 2017. I think we played you guys in that tournament as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you beat us, that time as well on the Rosenthal team, same team. But I remember Avery was like sitting on my lap and like, so like, like just a little girl. And now here she's a bridge player.
Well, there's a big difference between 8 and 15. And 7 years ago, she was 8. Now she's 15. And it's just, I'm not ready to accept yet that she's 15, but it's just teenagers grow up very quickly. I will say there was a huge dividing line for me between 12 and 13. And for her as a bridge player, by the way, she learned to play bridge very young. She was around bridge clubs her whole life. So she learned, at a very young age, she took actually lessons at the bridge club with Michael Berkowitz when she was 5. Regular public lessons. Everyone else was retiring. And there was one 5-year-old in the class taking the class. She took one beginner class. She now knew everything. She didn't need any more classes. But, between, let's say, 5 and I'd say 13 and a half, 14, she was happy with just playing. And, she didn't really care too much. Then she got involved in the junior program. And she took it very seriously. And I will say, there's nothing like learning when you're young. Because when you're 13, 14, 15, you pick things up and you remember them right away. You're primed to learn. It's very different as you get older. So she's become actually a serious bridge player in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I would see her. So we were friends on Bridge Base, and I would see her on there. I'm very surprised that she's taken to it like she has, and which is absolutely great. I mean, I'm thrilled. And I reached out to her and about this interview, and she said she reminded me that you played in the first Junior World Championship.
It was 1987. It was literally the first time they started up the juniors. And to show you what the difference between the way that the U.S. sent teams and the ACBL decided to offer the team as a prize for the collegiate champion. So,
wow.
So the team all had to go to the same university.
Wow.
So that limited your pool. The team from NYU won it. And I actually got thrown off the team before we went to the collegiate. Just before. I wasn't allowed to compete. They decided that someone else could play in my place. But then the person who was there wasn't eligible, so I was added back on for the juniors. And they sent 4 people to the World Championship. It was a team of 4, no substitutes. So it was a very different environment there. And, the captain and coach was someone I've never seen play bridge in my entire life. He was someone who worked at the ACBL, and it was given as a perk for his job. And I never met him. To show you what the coaching was, I never met him or heard his voice until we got to Amsterdam.
Wow.
And then, of course, by the way, we get there. They send us with 4, and one of our members is really sick when he gets there and is not sure he can play.
Yeah.
And we have a 4-bagger. And it's the day before the event. And the ACBL is not willing to pay for someone else to come and add to the team. So we have to find a junior who is vacationing in Europe who is willing to come over and add to our team the day before the event.
Wow.
So we did that and played 5 with sort of shuffling partnerships at the last minute.
Wow. And you medaled.
We came in 3rd, yes. But what was funny is we actually ran it as the captain decided he doesn't know any of us. Remember this. So now he has to decide how to line it. It wasn't that important originally because we were a 4-man team. So actually, 4 males and a female. But we had a 4-person team, and our team, if you have 4 people, everyone just plays all the time. The captain doesn't make any decisions. Yeah. Now we're 5. Right. And he doesn't know how any of us play. So his method was he went and interviewed each of us individually about what we thought of everyone else on the team.
Oh my God.
Right? And his decision was the person who was added to our team, Billy C., would play with John Heller the whole time, who he had not played with before, although Billy C. was in New York. I went to high school with him. I actually went to high school with Guy Doherty, who was another one of my teammates. And Asya Kamsky was the person I was playing with. As you can tell, basically none of these people play bridge anymore, by the way.
I did look at the lineup, and I didn't recognize any of the names.
Right. So then eventually they decided that I would play half with Guy, who I went to high school with, although wasn't regular partners with, because I knew, and half with Asya, who I played with. And John Heller and Billy C. would play at the other table the whole time. So we were a 5-bagger with 2 people sitting out half the time, right, who were both really annoyed that they were being relegated, because they were basically saying, you 2 have to sit out the whole time, the other 3 can't sit out at all. So I'm playing with both of them. They're both really annoyed the whole time. It was a huge, and, so the first, they did this, it was a small event. So there were 2 complete round robins. The first complete round robin, we came in last. The second complete round robin, we came in first because we got our bearings. So after that but there were only 5 teams, so only 2 teams qualified for the finals, and we came in 3rd after it was all done. We didn't get to play the finals, but we won the bronze medal playoff pretty easily.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting experience.
Amazing that you've got such a full recollection of it.
Yeah,
this is a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm getting pretty old. 87 was 37 years ago. It's a while.
Yeah.
But I remember it very clearly. I even remember my first hand on view graph, which I screwed up pretty badly. But it didn't matter. It was for an over trick. But I decided to duck a trick to rectify the count for a squeeze. I miscounted my trick. I had all the tricks but one already. So the squeeze was perfect if I didn't duck the trick. But when I ducked the trick, now I just claim the rest. But, it was my first hand on view graph. I was, whatever I was, I guess, 87, so I was 21. I was about 20. I was about to turn 21 because it was before my birthday. And I felt very embarrassed. This is what happened. But I've gotten over it.
It's amazing. It's amazing you were able to find the person because, this is 87, the internet is not happening.
Yeah.
That you found the guy in Europe the day before to play.
That was amazing that he was found. I was shocked. I didn't get involved in that, but I don't know how they figured out his family was vacationing in Ireland and this was in Amsterdam. They all flew over to Amsterdam.
Wow. I didn't follow the selection. You said you won the collegiate trials, or you won the collegiates, and you got kicked off.
You want to go back to the beginning. Okay. The way they decided to figure out what teams were eligible to go to the collegiate was they had a par contest.
Okay.
Each college could put as many pairs north, south, and east, west as they wanted. The top
Yeah.
north, south pair and the top east, west score for the college were added up, and whoever had the top, I forget, 8 scores got to go to the collegiate. Maybe it was, I don't remember how many teams it was for the collegiate, but however many got to go to a collegiate, the national. So I was supposed to go play with Astia in the par contest, and Barry Gorin was going to play with Mitch Hoffing. Okay. So we get there and they read the conditions and they realize that Mitch Hoffing, who was to play with Barry Gorin, was not eligible. Barry Gorin at that time was by far the most experienced player going to NYU at the time. They decided that Barry had to play for one of the pairs. So the person who was running the event, who was directing it, was Alan Miller, and he decided that at the time, in his judgment, Barry and Asya were the strongest pair they could put together.
Yeah.
So I got put playing with Mitch Hoffing.
Okay.
So I played with Mitch Hoffing. We actually had a very good score, the top score in our direction.
In the par contest?
In the par
contest?
With Mitch.
Okay.
But we weren't eligible because Mitch wasn't eligible. So the two pairs that went were John Heller and Guy, and Barry and Asya. They qualified for the collegiate. Barry, on the other hand, was a little too old. So he didn't qualify for the juniors. So when that team won the juniors, I replaced
they won the
Barry.
collegiates.
They won the collegiates. I now became the fourth member for the juniors.
So you went to NYU?
I did go to NYU. Yes.
Chris thought you went to Lincoln thought you went to college in Rochester.
I did. I started at Rochester, transferred to NYU.
Got it.
I didn't finish either of those places. So what happens? Although this is irrelevant to bridge, because my stopping playing college had nothing to do with playing bridge. I actually wasn't playing that much bridge then. Was that I decided I had a part-time job doing computer work while I was in college, and they kept on wanting me to work more and more.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I was like, I think I'm going to make computers my career. They already want me to work full time. They don't care if I finish my degree.
Right.
So I was like, I'll just start working as a programmer and consultant. Then after about 6 or 7 years ago of that, I discovered I really didn't like it. But, but at that point, I'd already made the decision. If I had to do over again, I would have gotten my degree just because it gives you more flexibility when you want to change things later. If I continued on the computer path, it probably wouldn't have mattered that much. You have a certain amount of years of experience programming, they don't really care what your college degree is. Especially then, where there were a lot of people sort of learning by the seat of their pants.
So then what happened?
The next thing I did was, in the traditional bridge player mode, I went to doing some fading on the floor of the Amex. I did that. The group I was with dissolved, and I talked to some other groups, and I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, and I decided to take some time off and do some professional bridge to make some money while I was trying to decide what I wanted to do. And apparently I haven't decided yet. That was about 95, 96. I don't remember exactly what year that was. Maybe a little later, maybe 97, 98, but it was over 25 years ago.
And your wife, Jennifer, is a bridge player.
Yeah.
But she doesn't come to the tournaments anymore.
She got out of the habit when Avery was little. She hasn't been coming as much. And, now we're involved. We are involved in the New York City bridge clubs. We own a club in Long Island. We own a club in Westchester. So in some ways, when I travel to bridge tournaments, it's better for there to be someone to watch the businesses at home.
Right.
So in some ways, it's awkward for her to go when I'm going.
I see.
Most of the time, she ends up not coming.
Right. I haven't seen her in a long time. And I spelled her name wrong in a text, but she didn't respond to my text, I don't think.
She probably wasn't paying attention. She tends to be. She would have responded if she did. But. Or she was really angry at you for misspelling her name. I'm sure
Well, I
no one's
caught it
ever
because
spelled her name with a J before. Her name is Jennifer,
no,
starting with
I
a G.
didn't. I did get the G, but I shorted her an N, I think.
Okay, well, the rest of her name is spelled the traditional Jennifer way.
I looked her up on ACBL Score actually. Because I knew her last name Bender. This is probably riveting for the listeners. Your biggest win, arguably, is the NAPC 1988.
Go probably Vanderbilt was bigger, but okay. NABC, the North American pairs flight, which was Flight B at that point because there were only 2 flights, but they relisted it as Flight C. They've demoted it to Flight C after the fact because it was non-life master, which is now what's called Flight C. But there was only Flight A and Flight B at the time.
Got it.
And I played it with Brad Moss.
Right.
When I was, I guess, 21 and he was maybe 16 or 17. He was young. And, we were very, very confident that we would win easily. And we had a lot of good sessions. Like I would think that.
Yeah.
I think like in the national final that we won the district easily. National finals we had like 65, 65, 67.
Wow.
And then the last session was tough, but it was still like 53, 54. But the fact is, when you have enough carryover and enough game, we still won pretty easily.
Did you think you'd blown it?
I didn't really think about it. I was just playing each board and annoyed when I got bad boards, But one of the big things is to remember everything was done much more automatically. I had no idea really how it was going. I felt like I always, felt like we were going to win. What was funny is after we actually we played 2 events that tournament. We played the Swiss the final weekend.
Yeah.
And we picked up teammates who were good teammates, but I'm not arguing.
Yeah.
But we picked up teammates, and for a while we were leading the event as a Flight C pair. We fell out at the end, but we were in the top 10 playing with pre-dupe boards through 6 matches of the final day. Then we had a couple bad matches again, but we were not that experienced.
Is this summer? So NAP is summer, so that's no. NAP is the spring, so it's a 2-day Swiss.
2-day Swiss, and it was and also remember this is a very old schedule. The schedule has nothing to do with what it was like then. In the summer when I first started, the final weekend was just a mixed board match.
Huh.
That was the only event the final weekend, 2-day mixed board match.
So how'd you start? What about? Well, the spin gold was still going on, wasn't it?
The last 2 days of the spin gold.
So you got second in the spin gold, I think, and I think maybe in Toronto, was it, or was it the year after Toronto?
It was Atlanta. It was a little after Toronto. Toronto was our I think we beat you by a couple of imps. We kept on winning by like 4 imps.
Yeah.
We beat, a team with Pastell and Compton. Those guys on it, small. We beat Lavazza really small. We kept on beating everyone really small. I will say, having been on both sides of a lot of really close matches, like when it's within 10 imps, it's really random who won it. After it's all over, you can say it was skill, but it really isn't. You play 60 boards, and there'll be some, you can always point to, everyone who loses can point to 4 boards where, if this finesse had been the other way, they would have won it. But the question is just how many of those go each way.
But you did. You won the Vanderbilt in Reno.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, that was another one where it was incredibly exciting all the time. Like our second and what's funny is our semifinals and finals we went through we won pretty easily.
Yeah.
But the 2 rounds before it, we were down with like 5 boards to go.
Yeah.
So it was very, very, very nerve-wracking and very exciting.
Wow.
But it's sort of strange. It's funny. When I will say, like the earlier matches, I was much more nervous when we're not doing well. Like when we got further on, I was comfortable. And I've played enough of these over time and lost enough of these close matches in my life that the matches being close isn't that tense for me. I can just sit there, play my best bridge, just play board after board after board, and not worry about it too much.
Yeah.
Right now, I've been playing mostly depending on which, Andrew and I either play first half is our current lineup, but we used to play second and third usually.
Yeah.
We just play whatever set our teammates don't want to play. Honestly,
right.
You're playing half,
yeah.
but we're almost never playing the fourth quarter. That's my hardest quarter. I can't stand sitting out the fourth quarter when it's close.
Oh, really?
Really hard.
Wow.
It eats at
Why? Why do you think that is?
Because you're not in control. I like to be in control of my own destiny. If I can play boards, it makes me feel much better. I can do something about it. Sitting back and waiting and being a good teammate, which you know what?
Yeah.
I actually try not to watch the boards when I'm sitting out. I don't want to be analyzing what my teammates could have done better or what they could have done worse.
Right.
Because, they're all really good players.
Yeah.
So they had a reason for what they did. I might not agree with it, but sometimes when I don't agree with it, they're right. Sometimes I'm right. And the fact that it worked or didn't work doesn't mean it's right or wrong.
Right.
So it's easier for me if I don't analyze, was that a good play? Was that a good bid? Was that a... It makes me happier, and I think it makes me a better teammate if that's the case.
But you know the score, don't you?
I do. What I tend to do if it's on ViewGraph is I tend to not watch it all for the first half hour, 40 minutes. Get a score, and then check more and more frequently. I think it's closer later and later, but I try not to watch the individual hand, because if I watch the individual hand, I'm sitting there saying, play this card, and it's and by the time I'm done watching 10 boards, I'm more tired than if I'd played 20 boards.
Right.
So it's healthier for me not to watch. For the Spingles, I'd watch when we were close in those close matches down after the last board. I would be sitting out there waiting to be there for the comparison. So I'd watch the last few boards. I was watching them with Migri usually, actually. And so,
because they finished ahead of the other pair.
Usually,
Migri?
There was always a pair that finished ahead. We at that point we had Chris and Jan, and Boya and Christian, and Boya and Christian.
Oh, Migri wasn't on the team.
No, she wasn't on the team. She used to be on the team. She was on our team when we got to the finals of the Spingles with David.
Yeah.
But at this point, it was Boya and Christian instead. Boya and Christian, not very fast. They will always finish last, usually by 4 boards. So I
remember when we came out in our match against you guys in Louisville, I don't know, I was sort of hopeful based on the conversation that you had with Chris. I think I was like, oh, maybe that's anyway. I was totally wrong. I misread the situation.
It's better when you're tough. I actually think it's better for your team. When I finish, I'm always thinking, what could we have done better? Andrew and I done better.
Yeah.
Because that's what's in our control.
Yeah.
You don't want to try to. You don't want to be the teammate who says, "Well, we would have won if they just hadn't done this."
Oh yeah, no, I 100% agree with you.
Even to a random stranger who's your friend, even to whatever.
Yeah.
Because if you're thinking that way, then you can't do anything about your teammate. You want to be thinking, what could you have done better? And that's what I always think is, even if I think my partner made a mistake, sometimes I'm thinking, well, my partner could have gotten this right, but was there something I could have done that would have made it easier for him to get it right?
Yes. Yeah. I agree.
that's very important, is that you
I
worry
agree.
about yourself. I always think that I can tell a lot about a bridge player. This is a simple thing. When something went wrong and they give you a hand, do they give you their hand or their partner's hand?
Yeah, yeah.
If they give you their partner's hand, they're interested in whose fault it is. If they give you their
Mm,
hand, they're interested in what they could have done better, how they could improve. And it's very important to
mm,
worry about your hand first.
mm, mm. Yeah,
And if you give
yeah.
it to a bunch of people and they do the exact same thing, who are people you respect, then you probably bid fine.
Mm,
But if they do something different, maybe that would have triggered your partner to do something better and different, and you should think about that.
yeah, yeah. How do you like? How do you figure out? There's a hand. So one of the kids so Avery, your daughter, who we started talking about, she won a medal in the juniors this year, silver medal
Dollar medal in
this
the under
past year
16, yeah.
in the under 16, and you're mentoring her team, and I think the other under 16 team that played in the worlds too. Is that right?
I helped mentor her team. I did one day, someone else did a second day, and I also was the uh, NPC and mentored with Barry Gorin, actually. He didn't NPC, but he helped mentor an under 21 team,
Ah,
not the other under 16 team, an under 21 team.
oh, okay.
Who actually also won a silver medal.
But you play like with these kids and like Ethan Derman, so you and I play. Ethan Derman lives in Baltimore, which is a couple hours away from me. There was a regional there last year. I played with Ethan. You played with Avery. We won the event we played in, which was really cool. And Ethan was on the team that won with the silver medal with Avery. And I think like you're playing and giving these kids a lot of feedback, right?
And the thing that's great about them, because I've been involved in the junior program with a bunch of groups for years, and these kids actually listen and work hard at it. And that's why they got better very quickly. They do practice when they can 2 nights a week for 2 hours. Plus, they practice themselves. They play up by themselves. They really work at it. And now that they're a variation of that team is playing is hoping to play in the U21. They're playing the U21 trials this December, so I'm helping mentor that group. And it's they get a lot better because they want a serious review after it's all over. They play all the
Yeah.
boards. We go over all the boards on the Zoom, and Avery says I'm not mean enough, but realistically, even if I'm not being mean, I do tell them what I think is right and wrong.
Yeah.
And the fact is, it's really useful when you have someone telling you.
Yeah.
I would have learned much quicker when I was younger if there's someone who's telling me everything. Although, there were a bunch of good players who would give me advice, and that helped enormously.
Right. So how do you figure out, like, for example, I played this hand with Ethan recently. I had singleton, too little, queen fourth, king sixth. And we're favorable. And we're playing imps. And they open a heart on your left. And your partner bids two hearts. And now the next hand bids two spades, which is a good raise of hearts. And I wanted to play in his minor, like at the 5 level. And so I bid, well, I mean, wouldn't you want to play, wouldn't you want your partner to bid there
Yeah.
wouldn't you want to get to your partner's minor?
I would. Now, the question is, I normally would teach them that 2-0 is a good hand with the minor, 3 clubs is pass or correct. So not as good.
Yeah.
The question is whether you
Right.
play that going all the way up to 4-no turn.
Right. Yes, exactly.
My instinct is not to, because you don't want, because I think when you jump to 4-0, it's presumed, especially when in red, it's presumed to be sort of preemptive. You
Yeah.
don't need it to be, a slam try or it's on our hand. You can always cube it so it's our hand first if you want to. So I think I would just bid
Yeah.
4-0 and have 5 clubs be natural, but it's fine to play the other
Mm,
way. But this is
mm,
the kind of thing I would discuss why you're doing it, not just what you're doing, but why you're doing it.
yeah.
If you want to, if you're vulnerable, you could play that 4-0 says it's our hand, probably. And so if they bid, we want to double them or bid. And 5 clubs just pass or correct, not creating a
Huh.
forcing path. That's very reasonable. And playing something that's consistent is valuable, because actually much more important than having the perfect agreement is both being on the same wavelength.
All right.
And if you want to play for consistency, it's always the same. No trump is always constructive, a good hand, and clubs is
Yeah.
always pass or correct. That probably makes a lot of sense. I haven't thought of this exact thing, but this is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the way I would think about discussing the hand.
Yeah. See, what you did was really great because like you saw like the problem immediately, but you also like had like a meta sort of, like you said. I mean, yeah, you analyzed that problem really well. I think, like, I mean, like, and like the sort of the bridge of it, like, and yeah,
I spent a lot of years teaching bridge, and it's people say that when you ask me a question, I don't answer the question ever directly because you're never going to have the same hand.
right,
So what I try to answer is how you should think about the problem, so that when you have a hand similar to it that's a little different, what will make you choose one thing over another?
right. That's exactly right. That's what that was. It's how you should think about it. Yeah, but yeah, that's the problem. Is like if you have clubs, you could never bid them if you play that.
Yeah.
The minor is always pass or correct.
That's true. And you do lose the ability to ever play clubs, but the question is, how often do you want to play? Do you have a solid, I've been playing this method for probably close to 20 years, and I haven't really missed the needing to play clubs.
Right.
Yes, you have to play them one level higher, but you know what you can do if you want to? You bid 3 clubs, then 4 clubs. If you need to, but how often do you want to play clubs when your partner's showing at least 5-5 and 2 other suits?
Well, it's funny because actually I have a hand where my partner, I had 8 clubs,
Mm-hmm.
and I probably should have passed because they bid 3-0. My partner showed a 2-suiter, and the opponents bid 3-0, and I passed over because the next hand bid diamonds, naturally enforcing. My partner showed a 2-suiter. I forget which major they had, and I passed. And now the next hand bid 3-0, and now I came back in with 4 clubs, and she bid 4 diamonds because I thought she had clubs now because the other person had diamonds, which I knew, like I knew she had diamonds.
The danger is that, yeah, your partner might view, but yes, your partner should realize that you know that they might have, your partner should trust you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you had clubs and diamonds and wanted her to choose, you would just bid 4 clubs directly.
Right.
You wouldn't stop and let them. And that's one of those things where I actually always believe that if you have a bid, you should make it. So you don't do it the next time and say, oh, I wanted to bid this the last time. Because why let them find out they want to bid 3-0 before you bid 4 clubs if you had clubs and diamonds, when you just bid 4 clubs directly? Or 3-0,
right.
pick a minor,
Right.
Although I think it's a little weird to say pick a minor when they've shown a game forcing hand with diamonds. But
How do you play this? The hand I give you with Andrew Rosenthal, the partner you're winning the Vanderbilt
Well,
with.
we generally play the 2-no is constructive, but
Yeah.
4-no is not. 4-no is just pick a minor and 5 clubs is play.
Okay.
We don't play the extend. We don't play an extends. We do play it extends to the 4 level if it was forced to the 4 level already. If it's only the minimum number of no trump where we play no trump is constructive and the minors pass are correct.
So say it goes like a spade, 2 spades, and they bid 4 hearts.
Or 4 spades. Then 4-no would be
yeah.
a good hand, and 5 clubs would be pass or correct.
Okay. Got it.
It's more important over 4 spades than over 4 hearts, which is game forcing. Like shows high cards. When they make an ambiguous hand, it's unclear whose hand it is. Like 1 spade, 2 spades, 4 spades. And that's when you need to know whether your partner is bidding to make or to.
Right.
When it goes 1 spade, 2 spades, right. 4 hearts, splinter, and they're making a slam try, it's not that important to be able to bid constructive 5 clubs.
Got it. Yeah, that's the thing about bridge. It's like everything you said just makes perfect sense. So wait, so do you play that it's different over? You play it's the same either way with Andrew though.
Or 4 hearts and 4 spades, yes, but you don't need it different. You know,
right.
First of all, neither one of us is. We're not impractical enough to assume over a splinter that someone's making a forcing bid. So if someone bid 4-no, maybe it's supposed to, according to our agreements, be a good hand, but I would just assume it was minors and not worry about a good hand anymore. And if they cite their splinter, and then, too bad.
Right. How confident are you that Andrew would remember this part of the system?
He's actually very good at remembering the system, but this part, if there was an auction where it seemed like it was impossible to show a good hand, he might not think, oh, he's going to think I have a good hand. He's not going to think I'm going to punish him when it's obvious what his hand is. And that's generically true for us. We're not. One of the things I think is the biggest problem that partnerships have, there are people who say, oh, it hurts partnership trust when you do this or that. You know what partnership trust should be? The partnership trust should be that every time I trust that you're trying to do what will get us the best score. If you think the percentage action to get us the best score is not to trot out an obscure agreement that I might not remember,
right?
I'm not going to be mad at you for doing something that hasn't come up in 8 years. And is our agreement and maybe would have worked on this hand, but, is it worth the risk of having a ridiculous accident? You trust that you're going to do it. If a partner passes a forcing bid, they think that's the percentage action. They should be able to do what they think will work the best on average and not worry that ruins partnership trust.
Right.
It's.
Well, you two have been partners for a long time.
We have been playing together. And we weren't playing all the events together. I was actually playing on a different team at that point. But the first event I played with Andrew was in the 2004 New York Nationals.
Wow.
It was the LM pairs in the summer of 2004. At that point, I was playing on a team with Judy Bianco, and then I guess about 3 or 4 years later, we started playing together regularly. But it's been at least 15 years, probably more.
Do you get jealous when his team wins the World Championship in the mixed?
It's a mix. It's mixed feelings. There's always a little bit of jealousy, but mostly I'm really happy for them. They're all good friends of mine. So,
right.
So I'm, you always want it to be you doing it, but if it's not me, I'd rather it's people I like.
Right.
So, it's just, I'm unhappy with, I have too many friends in the bridge world to be that unhappy when my friends win something.
Right.
You know,
Do you think, you think Andrew was more excited when he won the Vanderbilt or when he won the World Championship?
I don't know. Part of the difference is that I'm sure he was really excited each time, and he's not measuring the comparison.
Yeah,
And part of it is I wasn't there when he won the World Championship.
right.
So I can see how happy he was when he won the Vanderbilt.
What was that like? I mean, the Vanderbilt. I equate like the Vanderbilt. Like I love golf, play a lot of golf. A lot of golf friends. You know, like Vanderbilt, I equate to like a major. Like that's winning like the Masters. I think. You know.
It was really exciting. It seemed like we lost a ton of close semifinals before
Yeah.
we got to the first final. The first final we got to was close, and we were within 10 imps going into the fourth quarter. I think we were down 9 going into the fourth quarter, but whatever it was very close. So it felt like it was in our grasp to potentially win it. So you feel like you've lost all these close matches. So when you finally win one, it's just a relief. And it's like it's not. You can actually win. Just I was very excited. It's a great event to win. It makes you feel good for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you feel like you're going to win them all again, but of course that never happens.
And then you added, Gea Helgamo to the team, who, in Zia's book, Bridge: A Love Story, he says that Gea is the best bridge player in the world.
And it's hopefully one of the differences is there's always a problem. Pairs are always not as effective when they're just starting out together. And everyone on our team is a great bridge player. So I feel like everyone's going to work out. We didn't have a great year last year. And I don't think anyone played their best. But I think that I think everyone is capable of having. We could have a good run and just win the next event. It just takes, and if you win one, it doesn't matter that you had a bad last 12 months. You feel it doesn't matter at all.
Right.
Yeah,
when I was telling people, like my highlight from Louisville was playing you guys close for 3 quarters, and telling people about that. I'm like, like Boya Brogland and Gea Helgamo are like 2 of the most well-known names in bridge. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah. As an example, the first Open national event I won was with Chris Malenkin, I think around 2000, the fast pairs. And I almost left that tournament. I was so despondent at how badly I was doing that I wanted to leave.
Oh, wow.
And then we decided to I decided to stay for the last weekend and play with Chris, play the fast pairs. And we won, so it's like it doesn't, and then I was really happy. It didn't matter that the rest of that nationals was the worst nationals I ever had. It just felt like I couldn't break average for 8 days. Yeah, but for a long time that's the best nationals I ever had because I won.
Right.
And it didn't matter if the rest of it was garbage.
Right. So how much do you play with Avery, like as your partner?
Not as much as I would like to. He's pretty busy. And I've played a few regional events with her. Not many. I would say 5 or 6. We've done pretty well. A couple, I play at the club when we're both around, but I'm pretty busy during the year. And her life is, she does bridge all the time. She has all her junior partners and her junior friends. She does a lot of mixed martial arts.
Oh, wow.
A lot. And she goes and trains 5 or 6 days a week for 2 hours.
Wow.
She took up rugby at school this year. Her life is a little bit crazy. So, she doesn't have much free time. I'm actually going to play my first national event with her in Toronto this summer. I'm going to play the Life Master pairs with her.
Oh, wow.
Next weekend.
How'd that come to pass?
I didn't have anything scheduled for that weekend, and
Yeah.
so it seemed like a good opportunity to do it, and so asked her if it was a possibility, and she said sure, because normally when I play with Andrew, I play with him not the first event, because it's good, first of all, for him to play with other people, and second of all, he likes to play with other people, it's
Yeah.
fun. And also, although I've been really good friends with Andrew for a long time, I was actually friendly with him for a long time before I started playing with him. So I've been friendly with him for a long time. It's hard to play 10 days in a row with him. It just is. Everything
Yeah.
that goes wrong, if the tournament's not
Yeah.
going well,
Yeah.
you sort of get a little edgy
Right.
with things that go wrong. So it's better to
Mm.
play 3 days with someone else first. Usually we play the first event separately. Although the advent of the
Yeah.
solo has made it to the fall nationals, we always play all 10 days.
Right.
Because once the team events start, we usually keep playing. Even if we get knocked out and fall into a pair event, like in the fall, if we get knocked out of the solo early, we get to play the blue ribbon.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully, our goal is always not to play any pair events.
Yeah, for those listening at the nationals, like the main events are the team events, and there's that's like that's the highest level of bridge. I think
It definitely is. It's nice to play. One of the best things, most fun is that's one of the why I get actually the most disappointed when we lose one of those events, because you're out of it. There's
Yeah.
nothing else you can do. There are other events at the nationals, but it's not the same thing. Once you get knocked out of the Vanderbilt or the Spin Gold, even the Swisses on the
Yeah.
last weekend, which are pretty strong, you're
Yeah.
playing some teams which are not that good usually. You drew a couple of rounds of easy draws, and
Yeah.
it's not going to in the Spin Gold Vanderbilt. Once you get through, right now there are a lot of good teams. Once you get to the round of 32, you're usually playing very good players.
Yeah.
And that's as a relatively high seed. If you're seated somewhere lower, once you get to the round, it's all good players from the round of 64 on. And there's nothing like having to play all 60 boards against good teams.
Do you know how many seeding points you have?
Now, less than I did a year ago. I was almost maxed at 70 last spring. I had 69 point something. Now I'm down to about 60 because we had a bad year. So we need to have a good few matches to get back up close to 70.
Do you guys go out for dinner as a team?
Not that much, honestly. Part of it is that, we're on a different schedule. We're playing the first half.
Yeah.
And I actually take the nationals now that I'm a little older. I'm going to turn 58 this summer. I take it very seriously when I'm playing, and I try to make sure I eat early. I'm ready. I get a lot of sleep, and I'm not that worried. We
Yeah.
usually go out for like one team dinner early on when it's not that serious. After that,
Yeah.
rarely. We mostly
Right.
eat quickly and relax. And Avery, you could ask Avery, but the nationals are all about me getting enough sleep for me. It's just I want to make sure I'm alert. I wake up a certain amount of time before, so I have time to wake up, have a little something to eat, get coffee, and have it go through. So get up a couple, at least an hour and a half before the game, get myself set up, play bridge. When I'm done playing bridge, the first thing I do is probably take a nap. Then I go to get some sleep at night. My whole schedule is about being alert and playing at my best for the whole day.
Mm.
Although I enjoy seeing people and I want to go out,
Yeah.
this is a very serious stuff for me. So it's not
Yeah.
I'm not going to the nationals to have fun.
Right.
I do have fun.
Yeah.
I do like seeing people. I do go out,
Yeah.
have a drink with people, do some things, but it's not a priority to me.
Right. What's it like when you and Avery when you make a mistake on a hand? let's like, I don't know how you categorize a mistake,
Mm-hmm.
but let's say you get something wrong on the hand.
Mm-hmm.
What's that dynamic like?
Well, Avery is a very sassy teenager. He's not. It's not like when I was a kid. And by the way, my parents are very laid back, but
Yeah.
they still. I would never have considered like insulting my parents to their face. It wouldn't have even occurred to me. Avery has no compunction. If she says something behind me and I don't hear her, she says, "That's because you're deaf." It's anything you do wrong, she's capable. But she's very, she has that teenager sort of, I don't want to do anything, I don't want to say anything's wrong. But on the other hand, I will say the good thing about the dynamic is if I tell her what she did wrong, she will tell me no. She'll argue with me. It doesn't matter. And she'll tell me what I did wrong all the time. But she does listen to me. And she will change what she does based on what I say. In life or in bridge, she actually listens to my advice. She won't tell me she's listening to it at the time.
Right.
And that's part of being 15, I think. But, she actually is very good at listening to what people tell her, deciding whether or not she agrees with it. And if she does, and deciding outside of her own ego, which is not always easy to do. But I think that's why she's gotten a lot better very quickly, is because if someone tells her what she did was wrong, she'll think about it and try to do differently the next time. Even if her first response is, no, it was obvious.
Now I was in communication with you a little bit in Schaumburg because you were there with Avery and Ethan. They were playing together in the mixed, and it was 2-day round robin, I think. And after the first, all but the last match on day one, I think they were in first place,
and they were in second after the last match.
Right.
Yeah, they were playing really well together, and they did great. They didn't have a great second day, and whatever. Their whole team played great the first day and didn't play as well the second day. But to me, what was the most impressive was they could play with. There were some really top players there, and they played with them. I'm not saying they were the best pair in the event, because they weren't.
Right. Yeah.
But they were. It was good that they clearly belonged in the event.
Right.
And they were doing really well. And it is hard to play 2 days in a row, all the boards, and it's hard to play against all the good teams. And I think it was a good learning experience to see the highs and the lows, and not to let, if you have some bad boards and your team's not doing well, not to let it keep rolling. That's actually, I think, a lot more teams lose matches through negative momentum. You're not actually ever high, right? Because it's going well doesn't mean your finesses are going to work better than another time. So you just have to keep playing right and hope it works more. But you can definitely get cold. If you start second guessing your own judgment and not playing bridge the way that you playing to your best, you can play badly and have a bunch of bad boards in a row. And that's easy to do. If you get depressed, if anyone's depressed, they're not playing their best bridge. So if you're upset with what went on, it's part of the reason I actually don't want to watch my teammates play. Because if they do something stupid, I'm human. I might get pissed off at it.
Right.
So I don't want to know if they made a mistake. Why do I want to know that?
Yeah.
Well, it's not going to help me play better the next day, and I can only control how I play. And so you have to sit there and say, you know what? Next board. And just go and try to play bridge each board like it was a new event.
There was a great bridge winners post that a young man, I I don't know. Cerium Ganasan.
Yeah. Bork, yeah. Bork Talk is his BBO name.
What is it?
Bork Talk is his BBO name.
And he was in some terrible contract, 2 spades doubled in a 6-0 fit, and so he was basically ready to give up, and he wrote this post because you said no. This you need to grind on this hand. Like he was sort of ready to give up when he got in this terrible contract. Anyway, I was playing in a golf tournament this weekend. 3 days stroke play. I did not play very well first day, second day, front nine of the third day. And I thought about this instance, and I thought about this build's character, and I actually shot 1 over par on the back nine.
That's great.
Which was like, it was real. And I had like a respectable score, at least on the third day, because of that. So I'm not doing a good job of setting up the story here. Can you take over
He was in one of my earlier junior groups.
Yeah.
And he was actually someone who I enjoyed, because I always enjoyed when I mentor. There have been some groups where I mentor. They never ask me a question. Right? It's like if I'm doing a Zoom or something, it's like I'm lecturing the whole time.
Right.
And you know what? To some extent, I do try to give to them the answers, but I'm going to put more effort in if they seem interested.
Yeah.
He was someone who was always worked very hard on everything. And one of the things I told him at the time was, look, you're going to be in crappy contracts double. You know what? And if you're going for 500 against air, it's not great. But when you make it 1,100 or 1,400 because you just don't care, that makes a big difference. And also, you know what? The opponents don't always defend accurately when you're in a stupid contract, because they don't always realize how bad a contract you're in. So sometimes, sometimes you're in 2 spades double, and they're thinking, "Oh my God, if he has this hand, maybe he's making it." Right? So they're trying to make sure they're not going minus 670. So they let you get a trick or two more because they're just trying to make sure they beat it. You know that you have no shot, but they don't always know that.
Right.
So you grind and you try to take as many tricks as you can. And, every once in a while, they're in the same contract at the other table. I still remember one of the early mixed board matches I played in. It was back when I didn't realize that doubling 2 clubs was sort of silly to play showing clubs. But at both tables, they actually went 2 clubs, double, pass, redouble, all pass.
Yeah.
And the person who doubled 2 clubs at ace, queen, 10, 9, 8, 6 the club. Right? And, the declare had king, jack, 4th, and the rest of the cards. So both declares didn't play carefully, made 2 clubs redoubled, but they played it carefully. They could have stripped out the whole hand and played them twice, giving them the king, jack clubs, and held them to 4 club tricks. They weren't careful, and when they played out a club out of their hand, they had like king, jack, 5, 2. And whatever the clubs were, if they played the 5 of clubs out at the end, they had to win on their left and give them 2 club tricks. If they played the 2 of clubs out of their hand, they could duck it around to their partner. So both people made 2 clubs redouble.
Wow.
But neither one of them made 3. And 2 clubs redoubled is 760, which is more than all the games they were called for, because they weren't called first final.
Right.
But at the other table, it was actually the same thing. So playing a little carefully meant the whole board. And it was the opposite. They were so happy with their result, they didn't try to see how they can maximize it.
Yeah. Right.
And, that was, I still remember a hand actually in the Vanderbilt that we won. They happened to make a little bit of a spec double against me in 3-no trump. And they were wrong. But I played carefully and theoretically risked my contract, but not really. I knew the hand, which was the difference between three clubs double, three no trump double +1 and three no trump double +3.
Wow.
And 950 is a good score, but 1350 is a really good score.
Yeah.
And
Right.
sometimes when they make a misjudgment, you have to punish them to max. Or when you make a misjudgment, you want to make it the minimum, and that can make a huge difference in a match that's going on.
Yeah.
That's what I call being tough. Is being tough means you don't settle and you don't give up. You just, every hand, you do the best you can with because what happened before is irrelevant.
Right.
I've seen too many bridge players who give up, like they did something stupid on a hand. And so now they're not like, well, I'm in this place in the hand. What can I do to make it now? They're like, why did I do that? That was stupid. And now they go down in a hand they could have recovered from.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter how you got to where you are, what contract you're in, how you got to the place in the middle of the hand. You're here. Once you're here, you have to do your best.
Mm.
And that's what grinding is every hand, every trick, you give your best.
I wish I'd thought of it. I mean, I actually wasn't in the situation as much earlier in the tournament, but it really did. Like, I really was inspired by by this story to
that's always very sweet. I always like it. There have been a few times students have posted something, and I don't think that what I said was that deep at the time, but sometimes it resonates with someone in a certain situation, and it's very important.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll have a link to that in the show notes on our website. And also just want to say, like, when you get that 1350, like as opposed to 950, like that's really like emotionally difficult for your opponents too.
Right. And that's actually, by the way, one of the reasons that sometimes high variance pairs do very well is because high variance pairs are already, they budget bad scores. They've had a bunch of them in their lives. So if they have a bad board, they shake it off.
Right.
If you're playing it against an experienced pair who preempts wildly, they've gone for 1400 before.
Right.
Right? It doesn't affect them. But if they steal a game from you where you feel stupid, it might affect you.
Yeah.
And it's important to not let it. It's like, they got me. You can be pissed at it.
Right.
Because no one likes to lose.
Right.
But you can't think about it the next hand. If any energy you spend thinking about it, you're not thinking about what you're supposed to be. Focus is the hardest part of bridge.
Oh, okay. I mean, how do you coach that with Avery and Ethan and these kids?
Well, the main thing is I don't accept as an excuse that I was distracted. In other words, It's like, oh, I'm tired because I had a long day of whatever. I'm like, well, what happens when you had a long day of water polo for Ethan or whatever? He does different sports all the time. You know what happens after the long day? You learn how to play bridge when you're tired. Because, focusing through you're not feeling your physically best, you're not going to do your best. But you never want it to be an excuse. You never want to say, I lost because, you lost. So when you're tired, you have to play your best you can when you're tired. Maybe you have to think a little longer in each hand. Maybe you have to focus a little more. But you don't want to say, I'm tired, so that's the reason I didn't do well. So that's what I tell them is when you're doing that. Now, after it's all over, you can see that there was an excuse. But when you're playing, there can't be any excuses in your mind. Oh, I wouldn't have done this if. No, you shouldn't have done that. There may be extenuating factors, but you still made a mistake. And so that's being tough, especially on young kids. But I by the way, I actually think that's a lot of why, like two of the teams that I was involved in, Avery and Ethan's team, and the other team with Rory, Jonathan, whatever. I won't go through all the names. Two Michaels, and Arthur, and Sam they were not the favored team. In other words, when you went into that, there was the USA 1 teams, the USA 2 teams. The USA 1 teams were both favored to do very well in their categories. Both the USA 2 teams beat them head to head. And I think some of it is coaching toughness. They were all tough. They didn't let anything get to them. They played really well, and, maybe they would have lost the other teams on a different day. But they didn't, and, when the things went their way, they made sure they kept tough the whole time. And it's hard to play a team that's playing well the whole time, even if theoretically you're better.
Yeah.
I've lost to enough teams that I think I shouldn't have lost to because they had a good day and they were tough.
Yeah. How does this compare with you guys done several bridge clubs? How does what we're talking about compare with how you relate to your club players?
Well, first of all, I think bridge clubs are a very different animal than serious tournament bridge. Because bridge clubs are competitive, but they're also very social. So I see all these posts on bridge winners and something else where someone's saying, oh, someone in a limited game opened 2 clubs on a hand that's technically illegal. You should give them a procedural penalty. And to me, that kind of thinking is crazy. When you're running a bridge club, it's competitive. You want to obey the rules, but you want to do it with understanding and compassion that people are there to have fun. So when you're running a bridge club, sure, you talk to people, you answer their questions, but you want to nurture them and feel like it's a good environment. There are some people who are trying to be serious tournament players, but most people there are not.
Right.
And you have to understand what your role is. You're providing bridge doesn't have to be, it's like golf. Most people who play golf aren't trying to go play in tournaments or do anything, even not nearly as much as you, let alone be on the PGA Tour. They're going to have an afternoon of fun. You have to understand that that's what they're doing. You don't want to be. And so for a bridge club, I try to have people be able to enjoy the game. I try to run it the way that's the most fun for people. And I'm always there to answer questions. One of the things I think is that if you're running a bridge club, if you're there as the expert, as you're a resource for them, and it doesn't cost anything to be friendly and discuss hands and have them be able to ask you questions and make it a warm and welcoming environment. That's really what my goal is. One of the things I like to do, which some of people, actually the club I now run in Westchester, some of the people don't like it, but I like to run 3-board rounds. Because 3-board rounds, the game moves more smoothly. And the worst thing you can do as a bridge club owner is you have to rush people. Right? So if people are playing slowly, the people who are playing slowly don't want to be rushed. So the people who are waiting for them want them to be rushed.
Yeah.
So some of your customers are going to be annoyed no matter what you do. Right? 3-board rounds inherently run faster than 2-board rounds, which means you don't have to push people as much. Which is good. Because every time you're pushing someone's unhappy. Maybe more than one person. A lot of times the person who's waiting and the person who's being pushed are both annoyed at you. One for you not pushing them enough, one of them you pushing them too much. And so you want to do things which are external, which make it more enjoyable for them. You want to get the game started on time because some people want to get out on time. And if you delay starting the game, that's time you can never get back. You want to be efficient and get the boards out on time. You want to be efficient and do everything to make it a pleasant and enjoyable environment. It's very different, but you do want to prep what you're doing. And one of the things is, by the way, I don't know, this is something that people wouldn't know about me. When I first started playing bridge, I couldn't talk to people I didn't know. I would go out to dinner with a group of people, I would not say a word for the whole time. I
Wow.
was so painfully shy. I was,
Wow.
when I was even in my early 20s, I could hardly talk to anyone I didn't know.
Wow.
And, it's not, I developed not being having to do that because I sort of had to for different jobs that I had. But,
Yeah.
it's, I understand people not wanting to do things, not wanting to talk, not wanting to, and so I changed now when I run a bridge club, I try to make sure I remember every person's name up to the
Yeah.
point where if someone comes in, the first few times they come in, I will make them repeat their name to me, and every time I see them, I will repeat their name back to them. Well, because even if I don't remember it, I want them to know it's important for me to try to remember their name. Because you want to
Yeah.
make an environment where they're welcome. So I really actually do
Right.
want them to know they're my customer, they're important. So I want to remember who they are.
Yeah.
And I might forget because I'm human, but I try.
Yeah.
And I think that's important as a bridge club. Even if you have a director or someone else, the person who's the point person, when something goes wrong, they want to be able to talk to you. And if they think you know them, they're going to be more comfortable talking to you.
Yeah.
So I try to make sure that I know each one of my customers as best I can.
What's your policy with your clubs about people showing up uh, like close to game time?
My problem. Okay. My job is to make it easy for them. It's not their job to make it easy for me.
Right.
So if they all show up at the last minute, it's my job to have that 10 minutes of chaos when you're starting the game and making it work.
Yeah.
Sure, it makes it easier for me. And if they don't want that chaotic experience, they can get there earlier. If everyone shows up at the
Yeah.
last minute, all those people are going to be being thrown into places. And sure, I'm not going to be able to seat it perfectly. And, so the people come at the end, they're going to be at the end of a few tables. So they're going to be, if there are a bunch of good players that come at the end, they're all going to be next to each other. And that's the way it's
Right.
going to be. I'm not going to, but on the other hand, they're my customers. If they feel like they're going to get there at 2 minutes
Yeah.
to game time, I'll find a place for them. That's my job.
Yeah.
That's,
So you seed your games, your club games?
okay, I loosely seed my club games. What I try to do is they're for multiple reasons. One is on average, the less experienced players are slower than the more experienced players. Not totally always true, but
Yeah.
on average.
Yeah.
And what you want to do is not put all your fast players in a row or slow players in a row. If one side of your game
Yeah.
is running really quickly and one side of your game is running really slowly, everyone feels.
Right.
So I try to spread them out just for the flow of the game and the consistency.
Yeah.
And, I will say, if you're playing in a game, if there's a less experienced player and they have to play like 4 good players in a row, they're not going to be happy. They're going to feel like they're getting beat up.
Yeah.
So again, I try to
Right.
spread people out, which sort of naturally seeds it. But it's not actually because I really care about
Yeah.
seeding. It's because I really care about the
Right.
experience
Yeah.
they're having. So that tends to naturally seed the game.
Right. Hmm.
Yeah. I spend more time thinking about things, for example, I run different movements. I run a lot of fancy movements because I like the game. I'll run webs because I want to run 3-board rounds. And if you get over a certain number of tables, you can't run if you have 14 or 16 tables, you can't run 3-board rounds normally, but if you do a web, you can. And as I said, 3-board rounds run better. I don't run relay bystands because I don't always have a second set of boards ready, and I don't want people sharing boards. But there are movements with extra bystands that you can run instead that work the same way. So my job is to be knowledgeable as a club owner. I've been around bridge a lot, so I've seen all these
Yeah.
movements. So I'll run anything I want to make it work and be better for them. And it's the thing. My job to make it work and to make it easy for them. They don't have to know the movements I do. They don't have to know the reasons that I'm putting pairs different places. Fast pairs behind my slow pairs so that the whole area doesn't get bogged down and get far behind.
I'm sure I know what it is, but I've never heard the term bystand before. I mean, I'm sure I'm
Okay,
familiar with it. Like,
bystander when boards sit out between two tables.
uh,
Like the normal thing they do if there are, let's say, 12 tables, you want to run 12 two-board rounds, is that
yeah,
1 in 12 will theoretically share their boards. Now with duplicating machines, they normally make an extra set of boards for one of those tables. And between 6 and 7, the boards sit out. So after the boards go to table 7, they sit out for a round, then they go to table 6. And these are just ways to make it so you don't run into the same board. But you can actually also do the same thing with 2 bystands instead of a relay, 2 places where the boards sit out instead of a relay. Now that means there are 28 boards in play, not 24, so you don't play all 24 of the boards. But, if I was playing in the Life Master pairs, it would be important that all the boards aren't being played or anything else. If I'm playing in a club game, you're playing 24 out of 28 boards. You're playing all the pairs in the other direction. That's more than fair enough. But why would I create an issue if I don't have a second set of boards by making a relay? Because a relay is another stress point. If 2 people are sharing boards, they're asking for back and forth, which can distract people and annoy people. Second of all, when they're entering their scores into the bridge mate, they're not always playing the boards in order. So they enter them wrong, and then they see the scores from the other table. All these things which can cause problems for my customers, why would I not avoid that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I probably spend too much time thinking about things like this.
No, it's fascinating. I mean, it's fascinating to I mean, I know very little about directing and running a game, other than having played in them a lot. So it's fascinating to hear from, your perspective.
I always did involve, I had, even before I ran a club, I had an early girlfriend who ran and owned a bridge club. So, I was involved in doing these things from fairly early on. So, when you start doing it, when I do things, I like to do them right.
Yeah.
It's just, I've always been someone who tinkers and tries to figure out how things work. I don't just, it's just who I am. It's what I've always done. I wasn't the best student in school, but strangely enough, I learned very well because I cared much more about understanding what I was doing than giving my teachers back what they wanted. What I learned later in life is that you have bosses. Teachers are like your bosses, right? They might be right, they might be wrong, but it doesn't matter. If they're in charge and they're going to make the decision about and they're going to make a decision like a grade or your salary or a promotion or anything else, you want to do your best. But what your best is your best of what they're asking you to do.
Yeah.
Just because you're right in your own mind doesn't help.
Right.
If you have a good boss or a good teacher, they care about the results, not exactly how you did it. Maybe they want you to do it better. They can teach you a more efficient way, but they're not picky. But they're the arbiter of what's right and what's wrong. You aren't. Yeah. And you have to learn that in life. Life isn't fair. So, but when I was a kid, I just sort of wanted to know how to do it. So I wouldn't take notes the way they wanted to. I wouldn't show the work the way they wanted to. I would do it the way I thought was right.
Yeah.
And that didn't always go well with some of my teachers.
So do you play in your club games then?
Occasionally. I don't want to play a lot. I play a little bit of pro. I fill in, by the way, if I'm directing the game, if I'm the director and I can fill in to make it not a half table, I will always do it with whoever's there. But strangely enough, my preference is to play with the worst player in the game that I can find. Because no one wants me winning. The people
Right.
in my club are happy if they win, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm
And
sure.
especially they're happy if they beat me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I'd rather make them happy. And I'm not going to try to throw individual hands.
Right, right, right,
But, what's the point of me playing with someone who's good and winning by a bunch?
right.
That's not helpful per se. So I don't care who I play with. I just don't care at all. I'll play. And, I don't give 100% when I'm filling in, especially if I'm directing, because my main role is director. I can do fine, even with my B game. It's,
Will you squeeze somebody?
well, sure, I'll play the hand the right way.
Yeah.
But if it takes me more than 15 seconds to think about how I want to play the hand, that's too long.
Yeah. Right.
I'll give it a look over. I'll make a plan. I will try to do it. But I've played,
Yeah.
I started playing bridge in high school. So, I started playing bridge in the fall of 82. The first time I played in a duplicate. I really started playing in 83, 84. That's a long time ago. So, it's been 40 years of bridge. So a lot of these, one of the big advantages of experience, obviously, this is that things you had to work out when you were younger. I just know I've seen the hands before.
Yeah.
It happens when I'm doing the junior training. It's like, I can see that it's a trump squeeze because I know the format of it. I can see these things coming before it happens.
Yeah.
I don't have to work out what works.
So do you feel like you have to do anything to get ready? Like, how do you get ready to play in the nationals then?
I glance over my notes because one of the things with Andrew that I think is we've done very well is we've only slowly added things over the years. We developed our system to what we thought we wanted and enough agreements. But after that, we've mostly frozen it. We make small tinkering, at one point we changed our puppet from 3 clubs to 2 no. It's a little better. We've done small tinkerings here and there, but mostly we're playing the same stuff that we have for the last 10 years. And that's a big advantage because I really know our system cold.
Right.
I know when he'll be giving suit preference. I know what his carding means.
Wow.
And
that's impressive.
It's just, it makes it easier to, one of the things I will say, by the way, on this point of view, one of the things that I think that people should do, which not enough people do, if you ask me or Andrew what our carding is, we'll say upside down count attitude, more suit preference than count. Because there are pairs that are almost all count.
Yeah.
And, maybe on the WBF card, there's a space for what your priority of signals are. But the ACBL card maybe says something about first signal, second signal. People don't play it that carefully. You don't know what people are playing.
Yeah.
And what you do with the opponent's lead, what you do, that's much more important than whether they're playing upside down or right side up. If I can't figure out whether you're playing upside down or right side up after I've played 2 or 3 hands against you, I'm in trouble. It was actually my piece of advice, by the way, to some of my juniors. I said, you know what? Sometimes it's better to know what they're either look at their card in advance because all the cards are posted, but never ask them what their carding is. Because it's better if they don't think you're paying too much attention to their carding. Either look at their card in advance or look at their cards or observe, but observe their carding, see what they're doing, try to see if they're giving suit preference or count, try to analyze which ones they're doing, but don't ask them a lot of questions about it. Figure it out yourself, because then everything they do will be honest.
Right.
Right? If you tell them, if you say, oh, what's your carding? And they think that it's important for you to know, they're going to false card. People aren't idiots. But if you've noticed in advance surreptitiously and you don't seem like you care, they're going to play honestly against you. And that's, it's worth a lot.
Like Ethan originally when I started playing with Ethan, he we were playing everything with suit preference, like no count. And I found that was really hard because, like, I don't know, I just didn't know what my second card was. Like we didn't discuss it very much, but I just felt like I remember playing and thinking, I have no idea like what my cards mean now because I already gave suit preference, and it's like, so am I giving more suit preference or? And so I actually asked him if we could play count priority, count, but some suit preference situations. So what do you say to that?
You can play either way. The danger of playing a lot of count is, my joke is, I used to play against a pair at the club who gave count on every card when I was playing a suit. They would lead something. I'd know that, and I would know whether they had even or odd in that suit. Right?
Yeah.
So they'd play one trick in the second suit and one trick in the third suit. Right? At this point, I knew the parity of 3 of the suits. So now if I had a 9-card fit, I knew if trumps were 2-2 or 3-1. You know whether they both have odd or they both have even.
Yeah.
Right? So I would never misguess whether trumps were 2-2 or 3-1. Never. So if people are giving count all the time, and one of the hardest things is to actually be honest about this, right? Because if you can't trust your partner's count, your count is useless. But if your opponents can trust every piece of your count, they're going to play very well.
Yeah.
So that balance. But the problem is, how do you false card, but be honest about when you false card? Because how do you tell? How do you know when your partner is likely to false card, but tell your opponents also?
Yeah.
It's very hard to do this ethically and honestly. Very hard.
Yeah.
I found, I actually said something to someone who's actually one of the most honest players in the world. I don't want to say their name because I don't want to sound like I'm insulting them, because I do believe they were trying to be totally honest. But I said, what's your preference, priority of carding? And this is in the team trials. It's someone I trust, think is a good player, think is honest. And they said, we give count, attitude, suit preference depending on what we think my partner needs. And my answer to that is, you've played together for a long time. You know what your partner's giving in these situations. You can't be playing where you don't know 98% what your partner's doing in these situations. So this answer is, you're going to give count, attitude, suit preference, and you're not going to tell me. Right? Because...
You think that's the correct answer?
Because how am I going to, 98% of the time, otherwise you can't defend. But you're not telling me. So how am I going to figure out what your card is? I haven't played 20 years with this person. I don't know in this situation they'll give count, in this situation they'll give suit preference.
Are you entitled to know that, though? Do you think you're entitled to know that?
I'm entitled to know what they know. It's not general bridge knowledge, whether it's count, attitude, or suit preference, is it?
Yeah.
You're allowed to know their agreements, and that includes by common partnership experience.
Wow.
It's specifically in the law. It says by agreement or common partnership agreement or common partnership experience. So it's not even an ACBL regulation, WF. It's specifically in the law.
Wow.
So I'm definitely entitled.
So what happened?
Nothing. I didn't want to have a fight over it. But the fact is, it's a real problem with defensive carding. Is that if you're going to allow people to theoretically supposed to know, then what are they supposed to do? It's very hard to disclose that stuff.
I have one last question for you, and it is: did you kill Tupac?
That is. So you got that from Ethan, huh? I don't know why this came, how Avery got this story into the junior group, but it happened to be that I was at a Vegas bridge tournament. I think it was a bridge tournament. I think it was a Vegas regional, and we decided to go. I went to see O in the MGM Grand, which happened to be where the Holyfield's Tyson fight was at that same day. So we're in there, and we come out of the show, and they won't let us out of the casino. The whole casino is shut down. You're not allowed to leave. There are police everywhere. And
Wow.
what it worked out, as well as being the Holyfield Tyson fight where he bit his ear off.
Wow.
But Tupac Shakur was shot outside that fight and killed. That's where he was killed. So it was one of the weirder, surreal experiences. You don't know what's going on. First, everyone's going crazy because of the way
Well, thanks for staying up with me. Well, you were great. Thanks so much. And I'll be in touch when we publish this. And I look forward to seeing you in Toronto.